Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqna.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Jondi Whitis loves energy work. From her beloved EFT to a host of tapping adaptations that reflect years of practical hands-on training, mentoring, and client work, she calls herself the people's teacher in honor of her commitment to making energy work accessible to all. Jondi's work includes training for groups and individuals seeking to use energy tools for healing, recovery from trauma, and personal transformation. She has a particular place in her professional life for humanitarian outreach, working with veterans, indigenous peoples, and teachers. Please welcome to the virtual stage for the 24 Hours of Tapping, my friend Jondi Whitis. Good morning, friend.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so thrilled to be with you. And thank you. Thank you to you and your team for staying up and doing this lovely, lovely work. I've already been in touch with Ulf today, and I just couldn't be happier and prouder of all of you.
And I appreciate the fact that you have been, like a lot of our speakers, you've been hanging out multiple times. You've been showing up in the chat box. And I think that's important for us to recognize that, like, the folks like yourself who are participating in this, it's because of a real passion for the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. And so we just appreciate your commitment. I would not know Ulf and Ganil if it was not for you. You were my introduction to those two wacky people, and I am eternally grateful for that introduction. So my world is better because of so many things with you. But that is another conversation that we don't have time for. I love the conversation that you want to have today. Because you know me and you know how much I love having conversation about words and how important words are, because we emotionally respond to the way we describe the world. And one of the tricky things about the human experience, particularly healing and transformation and movement and change, is you and I can use the exact same word and use completely different things. And I love the fact that you're just like wanting to start a conversation so we can challenge some paradigms, so we can have better conversations with ourselves and our own plan, but the people we're helping. So healing. Let's start there. When you hear that word, what are the things that you think about? What are the things that other people think about that you think are baggage to that? Like, let's just start off the conversation. I know we're going to end someplace fun with this.
I am sure of it. And I love the fact that, human nature to me is about growing, evolving, becoming, changing, all these things that we're designed to do. And that's true also for this idea of healing. I think that my understanding of it has changed so many times and will, in fact, keep on morphing, I hope, so that I can keep expanding my understanding of it. Because I do think often we misperceive, we make it small. Now, I grew up in the Deep South with a rather fundamentalist point of view. And in the days of before your time, we used to have people on TV who would go, heal, and they would exhort and demand and push. And they had this idea of healing that was about complete cure from something. In general, it was about a health condition. But the only option was complete healing. And the meaning made around this, I got even from a very young age, was just loaded with so much expectation and meaning. And it was implied. It was not allowed to have anything less than complete healing. And if you did, that there was some meaning around that had to do with you, and not in a good way. right? It was your fault. You didn't deserve
Mhm.
it. You weren't trying hard enough. Something you had done brought this on. You were being punished. I mean, these were all concepts that I grew up with. And I'm grateful to say, even at 2 years old, I was like, no, I
Yeah.
just knew. And I'm so appreciating that because I believe that foundation I received in healing and the confusion and refusal is what allowed me to keep going in my life towards understanding it better and passing that on. Now, that is one of the faith traditions that I actually brought with me and kept was passing it on, doing it for others, being of service. And so I still am very passionate about that, but I see it differently. And that's what I would like to talk about today is what does healing actually mean to you for yourself or others or for your work? We could go anywhere with that, but the idea of going from Band-Aid in the moment to total healing of a physical condition, there's just so much rich information here. So I'd like to know, where are you inclined to take this conversation? And I'm, of course, gonna go with you.
So this is just kind of dispositionally, and this is the thing that I've been, wrestling around. We've talked about
Mhm,
this a little bit recently, is, you know, like one of the big transformations for me in thinking about the tool of tapping has
mhm.
been the transition of moving it from a approach to a tool.
Yes.
And for me, moving from an approach to a tool, like when I think tool, the example I always use is cutting edge.
Mm,
I can use a cutting edge to cut twine, to whittle a pipe, to delicately cut sushi, to do surgery. And
right.
it's a tool, but the outcome of that tool and the efficacy and the effectiveness of that tool depends on how I'm using it and who is using it. And so thinking about, because again, you gave this really like just you stuck the goalpost or the two endpoints really easy at the ends really well. Band-Aid, which is temporary relief, healing as in total transformation. And just the first thing in doing that, instead of making those 2 points and turning that into a spectrum,
Mm,
I think immediately makes it gentler on me as a
mm,
person who's trying to create healing, and takes the pressure off of me as someone who's trying to help. What feels like 850 hours ago, Craig Weiner and I were talking about, this idea of the the nervousness of people sharing their tool set as new practitioners and
mhm.
feeling like they have to prove their stripes in that. And so we end up at that one extreme inside of that. And so I think just like the first healthy thing for me that you've done is you just made it a gradation, and recognizing the fact that depending on what I'm trying to achieve, different spots in that gradation really make a lot of sense. And like each of the spots are value neutral outside of a context.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And so I think what we're swirling around here at the moment is, what is your expectation? What is
Yeah.
the meaning made? And so there's everywhere I can go with this, including the fact that we are wired to make meaning. We're
Yeah.
doing what we're wired to do, but the meaning we've made may not be the most helpful for ourselves or our work or an expectation we have for others.
And inside of that, I think like I don't think expectation's the problem. I think implicit expectation becomes the problem. Because like when we name it out loud,
Mhm.
then we're in a circumstance. I was teaching a class last weekend, and I'm talking about like, it's a process. And one of my students was like, well, what if I just want it to be in a single step every single time? I'm like, great, say that out loud. How's it working for you?
Mhm.
But I think it's a health, like, even though I don't necessarily approach healing in that way, where it's always going to be, I can find this way to instantaneous release, it's a healthier thing to say that out loud, because it now gives me the opportunity to do that. And so, like, this idea of like happiness is outcome divided by expectation. And we get a lot of trouble when it is an implicit, unnamed, clearly expectation that we're emotionally responding to. Because I think of Gary Craig's Comedies of the Mind.
Yes.
Like the moment it comes out of my mouth, all of a sudden I see it in the light of day and I'm able to go, yeah, or I'm able to go, right.
Right.
Like just it coming out of my mouth, I immediately start to like see how tangible and real and if I actually believe it. Because sometimes, again, to go back to, the healing tradition that you were brought up in,
Mhm.
it's a cultural definition that was handed to you.
Yes.
And it's easier for me to challenge and not even challenge, to see if that definition is useful, if I actually drag it into the light of day and see what's going on. And
Mhm.
so, like, you know, starting out a conversation with someone who I want to be a helper for, be that formally or informally,
Mhm.
one of the things, my sister is in the support chat. You've all interacted with her. She's on the other side of this wall. One of the things that she's really, really good at is when we're having a conversation about a struggle she's having, is she'll go, okay, Gene David, now you need to start coaching me. Because up until that point, I'm her
Right.
big brother, and my job is to help her to vent and process her emotion, and that's it.
Mhm.
And the moment she's looking for intervention in a different way, she states it out loud. And so
Yeah.
now, like, the roles are really, really clear,
Right.
because it's so, yeah, go ahead.
That's what I want to riff on with you is it's so important to know the role. And by saying it out loud, by
Hmm.
bringing this into mindfulness, if you will, I would just say awareness, right? That allows me to know, am I in a role for myself or do I have expectations of my role for others?
Yeah.
Our egos are funny little creatures, speaking of Gary and hilariousness. I expect that I'm going to help you heal or transform or change or whatever you need. And sometimes it's really great to step back from the ego of this role and go, my old mantra that I've used forever is feel better fast. I said better. I didn't say I was going to be responsible for curing you.
Yeah.
But I do know that I have been given gifts that I can help you in becoming another place a little further back, excuse me, a little further ahead, that is feeling better because you're going to let me know. And I'm going to also be watching. I can see that. But that role is different, just like you said with our family. Oh my gosh, so loaded, right? Your sister is good at saying, I need you to change roles right now because I know what I need. Let's be pretty brutally honest. Most people don't
Right.
know what they need, right? We've had this conversation
Yeah.
before. And again, back to the expectation. When you do know that you need help, but your expectation is they're going to fix me,
Yeah.
right? There's like 42 different conversations here, all of which are really valuable.
And what's interesting is like there's two parts of the expectancy. There is the person who is providing the intervention. There's the person who's receiving it. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I can be in relationships where the people in my life expect me to solve the problem for them. Or we just go to the conversation that we just had with Kathleen about bringing transformational tools to young people. And when she was doing it, she naturally modeled this over the course of our conversation where she's like, hey, I know this thing. Are you interested in it? And showing up like living in a time of affirmative consent, and saying, is it okay if I share this thing? And it's not just like, do I have permission to touch you when I'm tapping? It's,
Right.
do I even have permission to share this idea with you?
It's an offer. You're making
Yeah.
an offer or an invitation, and it's not about obligation,
Yeah.
right? Um, I did hear Craig and I did hear Kathleen, and I also wanted to give a shout out to Rick. Stewarding connecting
Yeah.
is a biggie for me. I've come to this place where I think I'm gonna put a flag in the sand here and we'll come back to it. But I think I've come to the idea that healing is about connection or reconnection. I believe that in doing so, we reclaim our wholeness. And that, I believe, has become my newer iteration of the foundation of what healing is all about. So let's put it aside there, because there's lots of fish to fry.
And before we put that aside, I actually want to share something that happened in a client session a couple of weeks ago.
Mm,
I asked a client a connection, and I'm like, "Great, what do you notice?" And she goes, "Oh, I noticed some tears behind my eyes." I'm like, "Awesome. Ask those tears, what are they worried about?" And she did that, and she goes, "No, the tears behind my eyes were because you asked a question about me, and I could tell that you actually cared about the answer." And so it had nothing to do with the intervention itself. It's what you're talking about right there. It's this idea of the transformation begins at the moment of healthy, authentic connection. And that's a valuable part of that particular thing. Because, like, I've also had circumstances like this recently happened in one of my classes. You might even have been in there. We were doing tapping with someone, and the person said something. I'm like, "Oh, what you mean is," and she's like, "No, that's not it at all. It's this." And we did a little more tapping. I'm like, "Oh, what you mean is," he goes, "No, that's not it at all." And I literally, like, I couldn't have been further from the mark as a
mm.
practitioner, but because of the space and the connection, it didn't matter that I had completely missed the mark in that particular setting, because that connection piece of it was so important inside of that.
Well, absolutely. I think you have established that trust,
Yeah,
that connection that is trustful. I am here to help even if I am not the most helpful
right.
person I'd like to be,
Yeah,
right? There is a trust about that. And I believe that that is what you are saying, and we can allow ourselves and others to be less than, more than. We can allow this instead of have these staccato kind of
yeah,
ideas about who's supposed to do what, right? Um, but this meaning, I really encourage people to spend some time mining the meaning. I mean, we're wired to make meaning. That's what we do.
yeah,
That doesn't mean we make the correct one. And that doesn't mean that it's the only one we can make and we can't change it, right? But that meaning we make is so huge for people. And we carry that into our sessions
yeah.
as well, right? What that means to us, from closing wounds to repairing, to recovery from, to restoration of, to reclamation of. I mean, I'm big on the human reclamation project kind of idea in my heart, because I see it as so much bigger than we typically look at it. But that meaning made must be addressed, I think, by ourselves and by the people we're working with, so that we truly know. It's a different version of Jean. In the way back, you said, you know, they usually don't know what they want. So maybe you give them what they need, right? I think it's a continuation of that conversation. They may not actually know, even though they think they know. They might
Right.
not. But together, that kind of investigation into what that might truly mean for them is, I think, where a lot of healing takes place right there. Oh, 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 wow. I, and like you said, here I was over in Poughkeepsie and I maybe should have been in Miami. Okay, fine. But I got it now.
Yeah.
And from there, I can continue.
And as we're talking about this, and it's like either crassly or very insightfully, the more I think about marketing and the more I think about being a helper,
Mhm.
the more good authentic marketing looks like good authentic helping.
Mhm.
And for me, like, kind of the disposition when I'm
Mhm.
trying to share stuff with the world, the order is: I understand you, I care about you, I have a plan. And so often, and again, like when I was a baby practitioner, because I was so enthusiastic about tapping, I talked more people out of tapping than I talked people into tapping, because I said, I have a plan because I care about you, because I understand you. And you'll notice kind of like the visual of that is, I understand you, I care about you, I have a plan that's starting with the person I'm trying to help. Where I have a plan because I care about you, because I understand you. That is about me showing up, trying to be helpful in that particular way. And I'm really good at what I do, or at least ask my ego that. And he will tell you that very, very clearly. And there is a part of me that wants to be a knight in shining armor that is coming into the rescue of what is going on. And boy, is it hard to humble myself in that particular way. And I'm saying that descriptively. I'm not saying it prescriptively or universally, but my own lived experience. I think I made this comment sometime earlier in the last 24 hours. Like, if I think of myself 10 years younger than me right now, I'm going to think, gosh, what an arrogant know-it-all jerk. And a decade from now, I'm going to think of this version of Gene Monterastelli and I'm going to go, God, what an arrogant know-it-all jerk. And so I have a question for you. How do we then navigate working from a place of confidence, which I think is essential to be a helper? Like, not like there's an appropriate level of that. How do I work from a place of confidence that is not working from a place of agenda? And I don't know if that's the exact right vocabulary, but I have a feeling you get a sense of the struggle I'm having with that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it works really well. It's a great conversation to have because our confidence that we can be of help,
Yeah. Hmm.
is really key to their developing trust that I can
Yeah.
lay it down here with you and that you will walk with me. Right. I truly more and more and more see us as confident guides, Jim,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a fixer. I can't fix you, and it's not my right to do so. However, I can walk the walk with you.
You say that, I think Cal Banyan, who is a hypnotist,
Mhm.
and he said, hypnosis is a confidence game. If you
Mm.
don't have confidence, you don't have game. Because that's a circumstance, because hypnosis, like one of the differences between hypnosis and tapping and these other interventions is that tapping is mechanical.
Mhm.
You do not have to believe, but if we stimulate the points while we are providing, like being in it, like going, what's on, transformation will happen.
Right.
All hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Yes.
If you tell me I can't hypnotize you, you're right. Because you have to engage in that particular thing. And so in some interventions, like that level of confidence is even more necessary because, and again, I have to be confident enough that I am believable to you. Because
Mhm.
if I'm not believable to you, it doesn't matter how much help I'm offering you. Like if I said to you, Jondi, I'm going to teach you to fly to the moon. Like there's a part that's going to know that there's no way that I have a rational set of confidence inside of
Right.
my skills of what's going on. And you could see irrational confidence, but you're
Mhm.
going to see through that particular thing. And so again, how do we go without, like, is it a direction? Is it like a degree? What does that look like?
I think you come back to this idea of I offer,
Mm,
right? I am confident that I can offer to be of help. I am confident that I can hold a space for you that
mhm,
is safe and strong for you to take a look at this with me. I am confident that if I can invite you into this presence and allowing, that you will be able to see it in safety
mhm,
and perhaps even self-love as we just, I want to say, unfold it together.
mhm,
I have that kind of confidence. I do not engage, or at least I don't think I do anymore in the, "Oh, boy, I hope I can fix this. I got to make them think I can." Probably why I'm such a great marketer because I'm just always telling my simple truth. My simple truth is I am willing. I am present and I will do my utmost to walk with you and create a safe space to unpack your suitcase with you. And that, to me, is where my confidence just stays,
Mhm.
because I'm not looking to create this other persona. We're back to the role. I think that is my role. And anytime I try to be other, I'm probably gonna not be as good and not be as confident. And they're going to read that, meaning they're going to feel,
Yep.
she does not feel strong, stable, something. I don't know what is happening. And then they get afraid again. So
So, yeah.
I hope that was helpful.
No, it is. I like that. And I think that the way I'd kind of like to start to, so we have about 10 minutes here to start landing the plane on this particular thing. I'm wondering if it would be possible if you could lead us through a tapping of some sort that helps us to find our way to that healthy role as a helper in the world. You
Mm.
know, like one of the things that I appreciate so much about you and your disposition is you're asking the question like, how do we become and how do we equip others to be better helpers? You
Mhm.
know, Mr. Rogers, as you always say, says, go find helpers. Like, we got a couple hundred people here who are here because they like being that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're comfortable falling into that particular space. Is that something that feels reasonable at the moment?
Absolutely. And so I'm just gonna pre-frame this and say,
Yep.
I think all of it starts with your simple truth. I mean, this is in the book
Hmm.
I keep rewriting. It all starts with a simple truth, meaning yours, and it all starts from you. It just has to, right? And you can't do any of this other stuff without it, in my opinion, or not do it well. And so I'll say, even though I would like to heal my ideas around healing
Even
and
though I'd like to heal my ideas around healing
my role in it,
and my role in it,
I want to be humble and accepting where I presently am on this.
I want to be humble and accept presently what I am in this.
I do want to expand my understanding of my role and what healing might be all about.
I do want to expand my understanding of my role and what healing is all about and what is possible
With as much grace as I can.
with as much grace as I can.
How is it that I can help this idea of healing and the meaning I might have come to this interaction with? Hmm.
Try that again for me.
Yeah. How is it that I can be a healing agent?
How can I be a healing agent?
And what kind of meaning have I brought into this space
What sort of meaning have I brought into this space
around healing?
around healing?
And is it really true?
And is it really true?
Is it even helpful
Is it even helpful
to me or to them?
to me or to them?
How can I help others be able to see this interaction more clearly and more helpfully?
How can I help others to see this interaction more clearly and more helpfully?
I'm willing to be curious.
I'm willing to be curious.
I'm willing to allow new thoughts and meanings.
I'm willing to allow new thoughts and meanings.
And is there anything I actually need that I don't already have?
Is there anything I actually need that I don't already have?
Is there anything I'm believing that needs to be tweaked
Is there anything I'm believing that needs to be tweaked
in order to be a more, I want to say, more useful healing
Yeah.
agent?
in order to be a more useful healing agent?
What equations have I made around this?
What equations have I made around this?
And are they perhaps in the way
And are they perhaps in the way
of becoming that confident helper?
of becoming that confident helper?
Mhm. And what does healing really mean to me and my role? That's what I keep trying to find out.
What does healing mean to me in my role? I'm curious about that.
And now I'm channeling my brother Ulf, right? What does healing want to happen for me next?
What does healing want to happen for me?
And if I allowed that, what might happen?
And if I allowed that, what might happen?
Could I just be willing to see something new
Could I be willing to see something new
and get a bigger picture understanding
and to get a bigger picture understanding
around what is mine to do?
around what is mine to do?
Yeah, I think I'm going to what might my allowing perspective change to do that is useful.
Yeah. And I think the thing I love about just the approach and what we're tapping on there is not I'm consistently trying to not have an agenda as a healer, because when I do that, but like the tapping we just did was about not having an agenda about not having an agenda. Not to put too fine a point on it, but just recognizing the fact that, because one of the things I am very susceptible of is, in a moment of curiosity, I can discover a place of healing and transformation that would be useful in my life. But I don't keep that sense of curiosity in the way to transform and solve that particular problem. It's almost like once the I'm really good at being curious about finding a problem, but the moment I find a problem, my problem solving brain kicks in. And now it's like agenda driven. We're going to solve this problem and we're going to do this in some way. And like my disposition is one way and your disposition is another way. We certainly act in the world very, very differently just because of who we are and the way we think. But like you and I could identify the exact same problem. And for me, it'd be really easy for me then to stop being curious at that particular moment.
Exactly. I so feel that for myself as well. And I just want to say, shout out to my friend Manoj. The art of sitting with helps me and them to slow down.
Yeah.
That allowance of time and space to breathe into that and sit with that, to me, is what helps both of us excavate a much deeper, larger meaning and capability.
Yeah. And as I think about it, and just thinking back to the conversations we've had over the course of the last 18 hours or so, I think we're really, really good as a community noticing when it's something physical and noticing when it's showing up in the body. Like we've done a really good job of noticing. And I think it was the conversation with Julie Schiffman, just like sometimes noticing good and noticing bad. Like it was not even just like I'm trying to notice the things that are bad, but it's like lungs. What do I notice? What's working? What's not? Abdomen. We are getting better at noticing about the physical things. Because I think part of the reason, at least for me, I think part of the reason why is there's less value judgment about physical things because those feel like facts.
Absolutely. 100%. And so if I morph that into felt sense state, sometimes you call that disposition, and sometimes it's just an awareness of I'm doing anger or I'm about to blow. I mean, I love metaphor. And I speak so often in metaphor because to me, this is like our innate ancient wisdom machine that causes a symbol to come, a metaphor to come. And I'm more and more in my work just having intuitive hits that are very symbolic that I just bring in and offer. But this is what, Jean, keeps me from making the meaning and then closing. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And I mentioned this somewhere earlier. I just remember my old Buddhism class.
Mm.
you know, and our professor talked about this idea that in a Buddhist tradition, what happens is you release, you release, you release until you get insight. And because you're human, the thing you immediately do is you cling to the new insight,
Mhm.
which is like the antithesis of what allowed you to have the insight. And then it becomes this very human struggle of taking that insight and integrating and releasing and releasing and releasing and releasing till insight shows up. And then, oh, do we become so human again and go clinging back to it again?
And this embrace of what you said, my version of that is I'm embracing my design. I
Mhm.
don't always love it, but I'm embracing the design of finding meaning is something that is just embedded in humans. I mean, this
Yep.
is our design to find meaning, no matter how stupid, wrong, etc. But that relief that you're talking about, of, oh, thank goodness. And if you'll remember, one of my C t-shirts was, there's a really good reason for that. I just
Yeah,
don't know what it is yet.
that's right.
That humility, I think,
Yeah.
is what makes us laugh and causes us to release and go, okay, let me hold it instead of clamp on
Yep.
and shut.
So there's one question here, just as on your way out.
Hmm?
What does it mean to be a healing agent?
Hmm. Well, I love that question. And there's probably a million answers. Here's mine. It means I have given myself permission to be of service
Hmm.
to others and not understand what precisely that might be at any given time.
Yep.
I show up.
Yeah. You know, and what is it? 90% of life is showing up.
That's what it
Um, and so yeah, and so I think like there is boy, I can't, I'm trying. It's a Shel Silverstein poem. It's a something Richard Scarry. It's somewhere about this idea of just stand next to me,
Mhm.
and not having it to be more than that,
Absolutely.
and
My
just
image that is in my heart and my brain always is that of a little girl, a child, really.
yep,
It doesn't feel so much like a girl. It's a child, and she is standing and holding right next to her an elephant. And somewhere underneath that is a Ram Dass, we're just walking each other home,
yeah,
right? That is my incarnation, it feels like, to what you are saying. Standing with, walking home, being with. That is the connection that I was
yeah,
referring to earlier, that healing is about connection or reconnection, maybe both, to reclaim wholeness. And we are all part of this thing called humanity. We're just a part. And together, this creates more. I don't know how to say it better. It just creates.
yeah, and it's interesting, like the percentage of my work that is just seeing my clients and normalizing their experience.
Mm,
Before we do anything else, just allowing them to be heard and
mhm,
then going, yeah, you don't act either. You don't belong in the island of misfit toys, or we all do, but it's not a circumstance where it's this thing that is exclusionary as we think it is, that we do such a bad job of comparing everyone else's facade to our internal experience.
indeed.
And it's amazing how powerful it is to simply there's an entire podcast called Feeling Seen,
Mm,
and the premise of the podcast is people come on and they talk about the piece of pop culture where they finally felt seen
mm,
because of a personality or a disposition or a cultural identity. There's there is Miss Marvel is a comic book character who is a Indian or Pakistani teenager growing up in New Jersey outside of New York City. And at New York City Comic Con,
mm,
the artists were there, and a young Pakistani woman stood up. And first, she just talked about how powerful it was to be seen,
Mhm.
And then the second thing she said, which was absolutely brilliant, she's like, our parents are all doctors and engineers. We have all the money. Where's the merch? So like they not only wanted to be seen, but they wanted to be seen. Like they wanted to be able to take that identity and say, and to be in that place and to recognize the value of as helpers, as just seeing another person. You know, my experience with the Peaceful Heart Network, that's what they do so well, is they like take off their shoes and listen. Like that, that's like that's understanding before you show up to do anything else.
Mhm. I couldn't say that much better, I don't think. It's
Awesome.
allowing ourselves to be present to this with another, with each other, to be with.
Awesomeness. Excellent. Well, Jondi, as always, it's a delight to have these fun conversations. And sometimes we have them in the middle of the night over lovely brown liquid. And sometimes we have them in public forums like this as well. But they're always a joy for me, and I'm always nourished by them. So thank you very much for your thoughtful approach to all of this.
Love you so. Thanks for the opportunity.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.